The massive space station hung in the void like a metal city among the stars. Galactic Council Station Omega-7 was home to dozens of alien species, all working together to keep peace in their corner of the galaxy. Today, however, the main meeting hall buzzed with tension that could be felt even through the thick metal walls. Ambassador Taemin straightened his dark blue uniform and checked his notes one last time. The human delegation had been preparing for this moment for months. Earth wanted full membership in the Galactic Federation, not the limited probationary species status they currently held. As he walked toward the massive doors of the council chamber, his team followed close behind. Dr. Sora carried a small device containing terraforming data that could help dead worlds bloom with life. Captain Jinwoo walked with perfect military posture, his hand never far from his sidearm, though he knew weapons were forbidden in the council halls. The rest of the human team moved with quiet confidence, ready to present their case. The doors opened with a soft hiss, revealing a circular chamber that rose high above them. Hundreds of alien delegates sat in tiered seating, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Some breathed different gases and sat behind force fields. Others had multiple arms or eyes that moved independently. At the center sat the High Council, representing the 5 most powerful species in the galaxy. Taemin had dealt with these aliens for 2 years now. He knew their customs, their languages, and unfortunately, their attitudes toward humanity. The reptilian Korthax Empire controlled the largest fleet in the galaxy. Their High Commander Vextar sat like a green-scaled mountain in his chair, yellow eyes fixed on the human delegation with obvious distaste. The avian talent hierarchy held the second seat, their feathered representatives whispering among themselves in high-pitched voices that sounded like angry birds. The other 3 council members came from species that generally ignored humans rather than actively disliking them. The council recognizes Ambassador Taemin of the human species, announced the session moderator, a floating blob of blue energy that translated every language in real time. Taemin stepped forward and bowed slightly in the traditional greeting. Honored council members, esteemed delegates, I come before you today with humanity's formal request for full Federation membership. We believe we have demonstrated our commitment to peace and cooperation. A low rumbling sound came from the Korthax section. High Commander Vextar leaned forward, his massive head tilting to one side. Ambassador, your species has been on probation for barely 50 of your years. Most species require centuries to prove their worth. What makes humans so special? We offer technological advances, cultural exchange, and a strong desire to contribute to galactic peace. Taemin replied calmly. He gestured to Dr. Sora, who stepped forward. If I may, Dr. Sora said, holding up her device. We have developed advanced terraforming techniques that could transform dead worlds into garden planets. We offer this technology freely to all Federation members as a sign of good faith. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then harsh laughter erupted from the talent section. Wing Commander Kreetak stood up, her feathers ruffling with amusement. How generous of the baby species to offer us their primitive toys. Do they think we cannot create worlds ourselves? More laughter rippled through the chamber. Taemin noticed Captain Jinwoo's jaw tighten, but the military officer remained perfectly still. The humans had expected this reaction, but it still stung to hear their greatest scientific achievement dismissed so casually. Vextar raised a clawed hand for silence. The Korthax Empire appreciates human enthusiasm, but membership in this federation requires more than good intentions and simple machines. It requires strength, wisdom, and the ability to contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization. With respect, High Commander, what more would you need to see from us? Taemin asked. Proof that your species can handle real responsibility, Vextar replied. Humans are emotional creatures. You make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. In times of crisis, you panic. How can we trust you with the safety of entire star systems? The chamber buzzed with agreement from many delegates. Taemin had heard these criticisms before. Humans were seen as too young, too emotional, too unpredictable for serious responsibility in galactic affairs. Delegate Mordesh, a smaller Korthax with bright red scales, stood up from his seat in the lower section. If I may speak freely, High Commander? Vextar nodded permission. The humans prove our point every day, Mordesh said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. They are too weak and emotional to ever pose a real threat to proper warrior species. Their military exercises are pathetic. Their diplomatic responses are soft and indecisive. They would make excellent agricultural workers under proper supervision, but warriors, leaders, never. Captain Jinwoo's hand moved almost imperceptibly toward his weapon before catching himself. Dr. Sora's scientific mind began calculating exactly how Korthak's physiology might react to various chemical compounds. Neither showed any outward sign of their thoughts. Mordesh continued, warming to his subject. I suggest we grant the humans a restricted membership. Let them grow food and tend gardens for the real civilizations. Perhaps in a few centuries they might evolve enough backbone to contribute something useful. The insult was clear to everyone in the chamber. Several alien species that had remained neutral began murmuring among themselves. Even some who disliked humans seemed uncomfortable with such open contempt. Tae-min waited for the noise to die down. When he spoke, his voice remained perfectly calm and measured. Delegate Mordesh raises interesting points about human nature. We are indeed an emotional species. We form strong attachments to our families, our homes, our principles. Some might see this as weakness. He paused, letting his eyes sweep across the assembled delegates. However, I would suggest that the same emotions that drive us to protect what we love might also drive us to extreme measures when that love is threatened. We hope circumstances never arise that would require a more comprehensive demonstration of human capabilities. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. There was something in the ambassador's tone that made even the most arrogant delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. It was not a threat exactly, but it was not entirely diplomatic either. Vextar studied the human ambassador carefully. Are you suggesting that humans might become unpleasant? If properly motivated? I am suggesting that every species has depths that others might not fully understand, Taemin replied. We prefer cooperation and peaceful solutions, but we are not naive about the nature of the galaxy we live in. The session ended with no immediate decision. The council would deliberate and vote within the week. As the human delegation filed out of the chamber, Mordesh called after them. Enjoy your gardens, little humans. Real warriors have work to do. Taemin turned back just long enough to smile politely. Thank you for the advice, delegate. We will remember it. 3 months had passed since the disastrous council meeting, and the galaxy seemed determined to test human patience. On the outer rim of human space, strange things were happening to the small colonies that humans had built, with careful hope and hard work. Security Chief Hyun-ki stood in the communication center of New Busan Colony, staring at reports that made his blood boil. The main farming settlement had lost contact with their orbital satellites 2 days ago. The mining operation on the moon had reported equipment failures that destroyed 6 months of work. Supply ships that should have arrived last week were nowhere to be found. Sir, we're getting the same reports from Sejong Station and Little Incheon, reported Communications Officer Yujin, her young face creased with worry. All the problems started right after Korthak's patrol ships began their routine exercises in our space. Hyun-ki nodded grimly. The Korthak's empire had every legal right to conduct military exercises near human space. The Federation Charter allowed it. But the timing was too convenient, and the problems too specific to be accidents. On the main screen, images flashed from various human settlements. Burned-out communication arrays that had mysteriously exploded during routine maintenance. Mining equipment that had been sabotaged with surgical precision. Storage facilities that had suffered atmospheric accidents destroying food supplies meant to last through the winter. Any proof it was deliberate? Hyun-ki asked, though he already knew the answer. Nothing that would hold up in a Federation court, Yujin replied. Every incident has plausible explanations. Equipment failure, human error, bad luck. The Korthak's investigators who came to help found no evidence of sabotage. Of course they hadn't. The Korthaks were many things, but they weren't stupid. They knew exactly how far they could push without giving humans legal grounds for retaliation. The door chimed, and Dr. Sora entered the command center. She had been visiting New Busan to help with their agricultural systems when the troubles started. Now she was stranded like everyone else, waiting for supply ships that might never come. How bad is it, Hyun-ki? She asked. Bad enough. We can survive on our own for maybe 2 months if we ration everything. After that, he shrugged. The Korthaks are being very careful, Sora observed, studying the damage reports. They're not attacking us directly. They're just making life difficult enough that we'll ask for their protection. Over my dead body, Hyun-ki muttered. Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the communication center. Yujin's fingers flew over her console as new information poured in. Sir, emergency transmission from the passenger transport Incheon-dawn. They're reporting a navigation system failure. Their ship is drifting into Korthak's military space. Hyun-ki felt ice form in his stomach. How many passengers? 300, sir. Mostly families being relocated to the new colony on Haven's World, including 63 children. The main screen switched to show the passenger manifest. Hyun-ki recognized some of the names. These weren't military personnel or hardened colonists. These were teachers, engineers, farmers, and their families, looking for new lives among the stars. Navigation failure, my eye, Sora said quietly. That ship was inspected and certified just last week. I reviewed the systems myself. The communication system crackled to life with a transmission from Korthak space. The reptilian face of Commander Zektul appeared on screen, his yellow eyes cold but polite. Human colonies, this is Korthak's Security Command. We have detained the vessel Incheon-dawn for inspection. Preliminary scans show potential security violations. The passengers are being held as guests while we investigate. Security violations? Hyun-ki stepped forward. Commander, that ship carries only civilian families. What possible security risk could they pose? That remains to be determined, Zektul replied smoothly. We take all security matters seriously. The humans will be treated well while our investigation proceeds. How long will this investigation take? As long as necessary. Perhaps your government would like to discuss expanded security cooperation. To prevent future incidents? The meaning was crystal clear. The Korthaks had taken 300 human civilians hostage, and they would release them only when Earth agreed to accept Korthak's protection for all human colonies. After the transmission ended, Hyun-ki slammed his fist on the console hard enough to make Yujin jump. Call Earth Command. Priority Alpha transmission. Sir, that will use up most of our remaining power reserves, Yujin warned. Do it anyway. Earth needs to know what's happening out here. The next few hours crawled by like years. Finally, Earth Command responded with Admiral Dong-wook's calm voice filling the communication center. We have received your report. New Busan. The situation is complicated. The Galactic Council is calling for diplomatic solutions. We are not authorized to take military action at this time. Admiral, they have 300 civilians. Hyun-ki protested. I understand, Chief, but if we respond with force, the Korthaks will claim we are the aggressors. The other Federation members would side against us. We have to be smart about this. Over the following days, more reports trickled in from the Incheon-dawn. The passengers were being held in detention facilities on a Korthak's military station. The conditions were described as adequate but uncomfortable. The interrogations were described as thorough but not harmful. Then, the tone of the reports changed. Engineer Min-ho managed to send a coded message through the ship's communication system. His wife Eun-jung was pregnant and due to give birth in a few weeks. The Korthak's medical facilities were not equipped for human births and their doctors had no interest in learning. They say human medical needs are not their responsibility, Min-ho reported. They're treating us like cargo, not people. Dr. Sora immediately sent detailed medical information for human births, along with emergency procedures that Korthak's doctors could follow. The information was acknowledged but apparently ignored. Security Chief Hyun-ki found himself sleeping less and eating even less as the situation deteriorated. The Korthaks were turning the screws slowly, deliberately. More human ships began experiencing navigation failures that brought them into Korthak space. More facilities suffered mysterious accidents. The message was becoming clearer every day. Accept Korthak's protection, or watch human civilization in this sector slowly crumble. On the 10th day, everything changed. Young-soo, a medic who had been aboard the Incheon-dawn, managed to send a brief, heartbreaking transmission. Eun-jung had gone into premature labor during a particularly harsh interrogation session. When Min-ho tried to protect his wife, the Korthak's guards beat him unconscious. The baby was born alive but weak. When Young-soo begged for medical supplies or assistance, Commander Zektul's response was captured on the ship's security system. Inferior species do not deserve our medical resources. If the offspring cannot survive without assistance, perhaps it was not meant to live. The baby died 6 hours later. The final transmission from the ancient dawn was brief and filled with a pain that seemed to echo through space itself. Minho's voice, broken and hollow, spoke directly to the camera. They killed our baby. They killed our son and laughed about it. Tell Admiral Dongwook. Tell him the gloves are off. Within hours, every human military vessel in the galaxy received the same coded message from Earth Command. The message was simple, direct, and terrifying in its implications. Broken Arrow authorized. Rules of engagement. There are none. Security Chief Yun Ki stared at the message for a long time. He had served in the human military for 20 years before taking his civilian post. He knew what those words meant. The Korthax Empire had just learned the difference between humanity at peace and humanity at war. They were about to discover why that difference mattered. The Korthax detention facility floated in the darkness between stars, a metal fortress designed to hold the most dangerous criminals in their empire. But the 300 humans trapped inside were not criminals. They were families who had made the mistake of being in the wrong place when the Korthax decided to teach humanity a lesson. Commander Zektul walked through the detention levels with the satisfaction of a predator who had cornered his prey. The humans were kept in sections designed for their species with proper atmosphere and gravity, but comfort was not a priority. The cells were cold, the food was barely adequate, and the interrogation schedule was designed to wear down resistance through exhaustion. Bring me the engineer again, Zektul ordered his guards. The pregnant female's husband. It is time he learned the consequences of defiance. Minho was dragged from his cell to the interrogation room, where bright lights made it impossible to see his captors clearly. He had not slept in 2 days, and his face showed purple bruises from the last questioning session. But his eyes still burned with defiance that made Zektul's scales itch with irritation. Engineer Minho, Zektul said in his carefully precise English, you continue to resist providing information about human military capabilities. This is foolish. We know your species is weak. Your cooperation would make things easier for everyone. I'm a civilian engineer, Minho said through split lips. I don't know anything about military secrets. I design water purification systems for colonies. Yet you refuse to sign the statement, admitting that human colonies require Korthax protection for their safety. Because it's a lie. Zektul sighed dramatically. Your stubbornness puts your pregnant mate at risk. The stress cannot be good for your offspring. Minho's hands clenched into fists despite the restraints. You leave my wife alone. Or what, human? What will you do to stop me? Before Minho could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors as the facility went to high alert. Zektul touched a communication device on his wrist. Report, he snapped. Commander, we have a situation. The pregnant human female has gone into labor. It appears to be premature, possibly triggered by stress. Zektul's eyes focused on Minho with predatory interest. How unfortunate. Perhaps this will encourage the engineer to be more cooperative. They dragged Minho to the medical section, where his wife Yoon Jung lay on a bare metal table, her face twisted with pain. Young-soo, the human medic who had been captured with the transport, knelt beside her trying to provide comfort with no medical supplies. Please, Young-soo begged the Korthax medical officer. She needs proper facilities for the birth. Human births can be complicated. If something goes wrong, not our concern, the reptilian doctor replied coldly. Inferior species must adapt or perish. Minho tried to rush to his wife's side, but the guards held him back. Eunjung? I'm here. Everything will be okay. Minho, she gasped, reaching toward him. The baby, it's too early. Something's wrong. For the next 6 hours, Minho was forced to watch helplessly as his wife struggled through a difficult labor with no proper medical assistance. Young-soo did his best, but he was a field medic, not an obstetrician. The Korthax medical staff watched with scientific detachment, taking notes but providing no help. When the baby finally came, he was tiny and blue, struggling for breath. Young-soo worked frantically, trying to clear the infant's airways and stimulate breathing. For a moment, it seemed to work. The baby let out a weak cry. He's alive! Eun-jung sobbed. My baby is alive. But the infant was clearly in distress. Young-soo turned to the Korthax medical officer with desperate urgency. Please, you must have equipment that could help. Oxygen, incubator, anything. This child could live with proper care. Commander Zektul stepped forward, studying the struggling baby with clinical interest. Fascinating. The offspring is clearly defective if it cannot survive without artificial assistance. This proves the weakness of the human species. He's not defective, Minho shouted. He's just premature. Any doctor would help. Any competent doctor, Zektul corrected. But why should we waste resources on inferior genetic material? If the offspring cannot survive on its own, perhaps it was not meant to live. Natural selection in action. Young Su fell to his knees. I'm begging you. This is a helpless child, please. The answer is no, Zektul said with finality. However, I am not cruel. The infant may remain with its parents until nature takes its course. They were returned to their cell, where Minho and Yunjung held their dying baby and tried to keep him warm with their own body heat. Other human prisoners gathered around offering what comfort they could. But without proper medical care, everyone knew what would happen. The baby lived for 6 hours and 17 minutes. He died in his mother's arms while she sang him a Korean lullaby, his tiny hand wrapped around his father's finger. The sound of Yunjung's grief echoed through the detention facility like a physical force. Her cries of loss and rage seemed to penetrate the metal walls themselves. Even the Korthax guards looked uncomfortable as the primitive sound of a mother's anguish filled their world. Minho held his wife and his dead son, and something fundamental changed in his eyes. The defiance was still there, but now it was joined by something much more dangerous. A cold, calculating fury that burned without heat. Young Su, he said quietly.
Can you access the ship's communication system?
Maybe if they haven't completely locked it down, why? I need to send a message to Earth. Admiral Dong-wook needs to know what they've done. It took Young Su 3 hours to slice into the communication system using skills that surprised even him. When he finally established contact with Earth, Minho spoke directly to the camera with his dead child, still in his arms. This is Engineer. Minho of the transport vessel Incheon Dawn. I want everyone to see what the Korthax Empire does to innocent children. He held up the tiny body so the camera could see clearly. They killed our baby. They killed our son and laughed about it. His voice never wavered, never broke, but his eyes burned with a fury that seemed to reach across space itself. Tell Admiral Dong-wook, he continued. Tell him what they did to our child. Tell him that the time for restraint is over. Tell him the gloves are off. The transmission cut out, but the message had been sent. Across human space from Earth to the smallest frontier colony, that image spread like wildfire. The picture of a dead human infant, killed by alien indifference and cruelty. In government buildings, military headquarters, and civilian homes, the reaction was the same. A cold rage that settled into human hearts like winter settling over a landscape. The kind of anger that did not burn hot but froze everything it touched. Within hours, military bases that had appeared quiet and peaceful began to show signs of intense activity. Ships that had been listed as research vessels began moving with purpose. Civilian facilities started operating around the clock with military precision. Commander Zektul, reviewing the security footage of the human's transmission, felt a small chill of unease. There had been something in the engineer's voice that did not sound like defeat. It sounded like a promise, but promises from weak species could be ignored. The Korthax Empire had dealt with threats before. They would handle whatever pathetic response humanity might attempt. After all, what could a species of emotional farmers and gardeners possibly do to the greatest military power in the galaxy? They were about to find out. The galaxy had never seen anything like what began happening in human space after the transmission from the Incheon Dawn. Within hours of Minho's message reaching Earth, the entire structure of human civilization seemed to transform. Before the eyes of shocked alien observers, Admiral Dong-wook stood in the command center of what every alien government believed was a research station orbiting Earth's moon. They were wrong. Luna Base had been humanity's primary military command facility for 30 years, hidden behind false records and carefully maintained lies. Status report, the Admiral ordered. Commander Ji-hai stepped forward, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that showed the true scope of human military preparation. All defensive positions are active, sir. Ghost Fleet Alpha through Delta are moving to operational positions. The civilians have been evacuated from forward bases. Ghost Fleet? Admiral Dong-wook had never used that term in front of alien observers. For good reason. What the galaxy thought it knew about human military capability was about to be revealed as the most successful deception in galactic history. Every research vessel that had been peacefully exploring space suddenly began broadcasting new identification codes. Military codes. The cargo ship Soul's Pride, which had escorted Ambassador Taman to countless diplomatic meetings, shed its false hull plating to reveal weapon systems that could crack a moon. The agricultural transport New Horizon deployed fighter craft that had been hidden in what aliens believed were storage compartments for farm equipment. Dr. Sora, still trapped on New Busan colony, watched in amazement as the colony's atmospheric processing plant opened like a flower to reveal missile batteries that could target ships in orbit. The water purification facility she had helped design transformed into a military communications center with range covering half the galaxy. "My God," she whispered to Security Chief Hyun-ki. "How long has this been planned?" "Since the day we made first contact," Hyun-ki replied grimly. "We hoped we would never need it." But hope and preparation are two different things. Across human space, the same transformation was occurring. Mining facilities revealed themselves as weapons manufacturing plants. Scientific stations deployed long-range sensors that had been disguised as radio telescopes. Every human colony, every outpost, every seemingly peaceful installation had been designed with hidden military potential. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. Engineer Wanbin sat in a secure facility beneath the surface of Mars, surrounded by computer systems that officially did not exist. For 20 years, he had been working on a project that even most humans did not know about. Every piece of technology that humanity had sold, traded, or given to other species contained hidden programming. "Activation sequence is ready, Admiral," Wanbin reported through secure channels. "All systems are green." "Do it," Admiral Dongwook ordered. With the press of a single key, Wanbin activated backdoors that had been built into every computer system, communication device, navigation array, and weapons platform that humans had provided to other species. Over the past 5 decades, the result was immediate and devastating. Korthax, warships throughout the galaxy suddenly found their navigation systems providing false readings. Their communication arrays began broadcasting human-controlled messages instead of Korthax orders. Weapon systems locked down or began targeting their own ships. The talent hierarchy discovered that their vaunted fleet coordination systems, purchased from humans at great expense, now responded only to human commands. Their ships found themselves flying in perfect formation toward destinations chosen by human controllers. Even the Galactic Council Station itself experienced technical difficulties as its human-built life support systems began operating according to new parameters. Nothing dangerous, but enough to remind everyone who had actually built the technology that kept them alive. In his private chambers, High Commander Vextar stared at reports that made no sense. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his staff. "The humans had no significant military presence." "Our intelligence was certain." "Sir," his aide replied nervously, "it appears our intelligence was incomplete. The humans have been operating under extensive deception protocols." Their true military capability was hidden behind civilian facades. Hidden how thoroughly? The aide consulted his tablet with shaking hands. "Sir, preliminary estimates suggest that every human facility we believed was civilian has military applications. Every research vessel was actually a warship. Every trade agreement included intelligence gathering. Every diplomatic mission was reconnaissance." Vexitar felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear. "Are you telling me that for 50 years the humans have been pretending to be weak, while secretly building a military that could threaten the entire galaxy?" "That appears to be the case, sir." On the bridge of the stealth frigate Ghost of Seoul, Commander Ji Hai reviewed tactical data that would have terrified any alien military analyst. Humanity had not just been building weapons in secret. They had been studying every alien species with scientific precision, learning their weaknesses, their psychology, their military doctrine. Dr. Sora's peaceful research into alien biology had actually been developing biological weapons tailored to each species' physiology. Her terraforming technology could just as easily create toxic atmospheres as life-supporting ones. Every cultural exchange, every scientific collaboration, every friendly contact had been gathering intelligence for this moment. "Ma'am," her navigation officer reported, We're receiving surrender requests from multiple Korthax vessels. They're claiming their ships are no longer under their control. Tell them to stand by, Jihai replied. We're not accepting surrenders yet. The most terrifying aspect of the human response was its coordination. Alien military experts had always assumed that humans, being emotional and individualistic, would struggle with large-scale operations. They were wrong. Every human action, from the smallest colony militia to the largest fleet movements, was coordinated with a precision that suggested decades of planning and preparation. There was no confusion, no hesitation, no waste. Humanity moved like a single organism with a single purpose. Ambassador Taemin's final message to the Galactic Council was broadcast on all frequencies throughout the galaxy. He stood in what appeared to be the same diplomatic chamber where he had asked for membership, but the humans behind him now wore military uniforms instead of civilian clothes. Esteemed delegates of the Galactic Federation, he began, in the same calm voice he had always used. I come before you with humanity's final diplomatic communication before the commencement of military operations. The chamber was packed with alien representatives, all struggling to understand how their assumptions about humanity had been so completely wrong. For 50 years, Taemin continued, humanity has sought membership in your federation through peaceful means. We offered friendship, cooperation, and technological assistance. Some of you accepted our gifts graciously. Others chose to see our peaceful nature as weakness to be exploited. His voice remained level, but every word carried the weight of absolute certainty. The Korthax Empire has murdered a human child and holds 300 human civilians as hostages. They have done this believing that humans are too weak and emotional to respond effectively. They have confused our choice for peace with an inability to wage war. The alien delegates sat in stunned silence as the truth of their situation became clear. You wanted to see what humanity is capable of when we stop being polite. Your education begins now. We will retrieve our people. We will respond to aggression with overwhelming force, and we will demonstrate why peaceful species often possess the most terrible capacity for war. The transmission ended with a simple statement that echoed through every diplomatic facility in the galaxy. We prefer to be your friends, but never again mistake our choice for peace as an inability to wage war. Within hours, human fleets that had materialized from seemingly empty space began moving toward their targets with the inexorable precision of natural forces. The galaxy was about to learn the difference between humanity restrained by choice and humanity unleashed by necessity. The lesson would not be forgotten. The rescue of the Incheon Dawn was not a battle. It was a demonstration. Captain Jin Woo stood on the bridge of the Soul's Pride as his ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly beside the Korthax detention facility. Around him, space filled with human vessels that seemed to have appeared from nowhere, their sleek forms surrounding the alien station like predators circling wounded prey. Korthax facility. This is Captain Jin Woo of the Human Space Navy. You are holding Federation civilians unlawfully. Release them immediately or we will take them by force. Commander Zektul's response came through the communication system with forced confidence. Human vessel, you are in Korthax space without authorization. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Sir, reported Lieutenant Sujin from the tactical station, I'm reading 47 Korthax warships moving to intercept. They'll be in firing range in 6 minutes. Captain Jinwoo smiled coldly. Send them our response. What happened next redefined every assumption the galaxy had about human technology. The Soul's Pride simply vanished, reappearing instantaneously behind the Korthax fleet. Simultaneously, other human ships materialized throughout the star system using faster-than-light technology that violated every known law of physics. The Korthax fleet found themselves surrounded by an enemy that could move freely through space while they were locked into predictable paths by the laws of momentum and energy conservation. Impossible, breathed Zektul, watching his tactical display show human ships appearing and disappearing like ghosts. No species has that kind of technology. The human attack was surgical in its precision. Korthax weapon systems were disabled by energy beams that seemed to know exactly where to strike. Ships that tried to flee found their engines mysteriously failing. Communication arrays went silent under focused electromagnetic pulses. Within 30 minutes, the entire Korthax defense force was drifting powerless in space while human ships moved, among them like sharks through a school of fish. But Captain Jinwoo was not done demonstrating human capabilities. Korthax facility. You now have 1 minute to release all human prisoners. After that, we will come aboard and take them. I strongly suggest you avoid forcing us to demonstrate our boarding procedures. The minute passed in tense silence. Lieutenant Sujin and her Marines approached the detention facility in ships that seemed to phase through the station's shields as if they did not exist. The Korthax had built their facility to withstand conventional attacks. But human technology had moved far beyond conventional decades ago. The Marines moved through the station with the precision of a surgical instrument. Korthax guards found themselves paralyzed by sonic weapons designed specifically for reptilian nervous systems. Security barriers opened at the touch of human devices that spoke directly to the computer systems inside. When Sujin reached the detention level, she found Commander Zechtel waiting with a weapon pointed at human prisoners. "Stay back, human, or I will execute these civilians," he snarled. Sujin's response was to simply look at him. The weapon in Zechtel's hands began to smoke, then crumble, as nanoscopic devices dissolved its internal components. The commander found himself holding a handful of metal dust. "How?" he whispered. "You never understood what you were fighting," Sujin replied calmly. "Move away from the prisoners." The rescued humans were transported aboard the Soul's Pride, where medical teams waited to treat the trauma they had endured. Minho carried his wife Yunjung, who held the small bundle containing their son's body. Neither spoke, but their eyes held a satisfaction that went beyond mere rescue. But the rescue was only the beginning. Admiral Dong-wook had made it clear that humanity would not stop with saving their people. The Korthax Empire would learn the price of murdering human children. Across Korthax space, every military installation came under simultaneous attack by forces that seemed to emerge from empty space itself. Human ships appeared in orbit around the Korthax homeworld before the planetary defense network could even identify them as threats. The assault was devastating in its scope and terrifying in its restraint. Human forces disabled every Korthax military facility without killing a single civilian. Weapons that could have cracked planets were used only to destroy military targets. Population centers were left untouched, but every symbol of Korthax military power was reduced to scrap. Petal, the other alien species, watched in horror as the galaxy's most powerful military force was systematically dismantled by enemies they had dismissed as harmless. Farmer's Wing Commander Kritak of the Talent hierarchy found her own fleets crippled by sonic weapons that exploited the precise frequency range of avian hearing. Her ship's crews were incapacitated by sounds that human technology could generate with surgical precision. When she attempted to contact other Federation members for support, she discovered that humanity had been even more thorough in their preparations than anyone imagined. Every computer system in Federation space that contained human components had been compromised. Communication networks carried only messages that humans chose to allow. Navigation systems directed ships to destinations selected by human controllers. The galaxy realized with growing terror that humanity had not just been hiding their military strength. They had been quietly taking control of the entire technological infrastructure of galactic civilization. Dr. Sora, now revealed to be not just a botanist but a specialist in biological warfare, addressed the Federation Council from the platform where Ambassador Taemin had once asked politely for membership. "We developed biological agents tailored to every known species in the galaxy," she said with scientific calm. "We could have deployed them at any time in the past 50 years. We chose not to because we preferred peace." She gestured to displays showing the molecular structure of various toxins and pathogens. "We could have eliminated the Korthax Empire in a matter of days using atmospheric processors disguised as terraforming equipment. We could have poisoned every water supply on every Talent world using the purification systems we installed. We could have made every alien species extinct while making it look like natural disasters." The silence in the chamber was absolute. "We had the capability to commit genocide against every non-human species in the galaxy, and we chose instead to offer you friendship. Remember that when you consider how to respond to human demands." High Commander Vextar, broadcasting from his crippled flagship as human ships held position around the Korthax homeworld, made a formal surrender to the human space navy. "We acknowledge the supremacy of human military forces," he said, his voice hollow with defeat. We request mercy and the opportunity to make reparations for our actions. Admiral Dongwook's response was broadcast to the entire galaxy. The Human Federation accepts your surrender. Our terms are simple. Full recognition of human sovereignty over all claimed territories. Immediate payment of reparations for damaged colonies and murdered civilians. Complete disarmament of all Korthax military forces pending Federation oversight. He paused, letting the weight of those demands settle. And one additional requirement. The officer responsible for the death of the human child will be turned over to human authorities for trial. Within hours, Commander Zechtel found himself in a human detention facility, facing charges of murder and crimes against sentient beings. His trial would be conducted according to human law, with human judges and human standards of evidence. The galaxy learned that human mercy was perhaps more terrifying than human wrath. Instead of demanding blood for blood, humanity chose justice. Instead of conquest, they demanded recognition. Instead of genocide, they sought coexistence on their own terms. The final session of the Galactic Council met in chambers now openly controlled by human technology. Ambassador Taemin took his place at the head of the council table, no longer asking for membership, but claiming leadership. The Human Federation assumes responsibility for maintaining peace in this galaxy, he announced. We will protect the innocent, punish the guilty, and ensure that no species ever again mistakes another's desire for peace as weakness. The other delegates sat in respectful silence, finally understanding the true nature of the species they had so casually dismissed. We hope this lesson in human nature proves educational, Taemin concluded. We prefer to be your friends, but never again mistake our choice for peace as an inability to wage war. The age of human dominance in the galaxy had begun not through conquest, but through the revelation that they had always possessed the power to dominate. They had simply chosen not to use it until forced to defend their children. That choice and its consequences would be remembered for 1,000 years.